Breathe in. It is 1850. The air on the Oregon Trail does not smell like freedom, gold, or a Hollywood adventure. It is a thick, stagnant, and suffocating miasma. It is a nauseating cocktail of fine, alkaline dust that burns your sinuses, the sweet, cloying rot of dead oxen left to mummify on the trail, and the raw, metallic stench of fresh human excrement pooling in the very same muddy water you are forced to drink. Every single jolt of the heavy wooden wagon vibrates through your skeletal system, feeling like a slow-motion fracturing of your own vertebrae. You are 22 years old, but your reflection in the cracked silvered mirror looks like a hollowed-out corpse from a forgotten century. Forget the quick-draw duels under a high-noon sun. Forget the cinematic glint of silver spurs and the romanticized legend of the lonely outlaw. The greatest serial killer of the American frontier did not wear a black hat or carry a Colt peacemaker. He was invisible, he was microscopic, and he was already multiplying inside your tin canteen before you even hitched your team of oxen. In the 1800s, your greatest threat wasn't a bandit's lead bullet. It was a single swallow of water from the wrong stream. You didn't die with your boots on in a glorious saloon shootout. You died shivering in the freezing mud, bleeding through your own intestines, as your family watched your face literally collapse into a blue, desiccated mask of total dehydration. This is the absolute center of the frontier grinder. You are nothing more than a fragile biological container trapped on a 2,000-mile graveyard, entirely surrounded by unseen, mindless executioners that will systematically dismantle your internal organs before you ever see the Pacific. If you have the iron stomach required to survive this raw microscopic audit of the real Far West, hit the like button now. It is your absolute price of admission to the frontier morgue. We are about to execute a vicious, high-velocity autopsy of every bizarre, rotting disease that actually decimated the American population. This is the ultimate uncensored guide to biological survival in a land where established medicine didn't exist and gravity was the least of your worries. The true serial killer is currently riding in the wagon with you, waiting for your immune system to blink. Biological threat number 1, the Blue Death, cholera. You are thirsty. The alkali dust of the trail has turned your throat into dry sandpaper. You reach a small watering hole where a dozen wagons have already made camp. The water looks clear enough through the silt. You fill your tin cup and drink deeply. You have just ingested a lethal, concentrated colony of Vibrio cholerae. The frontier has zero sanitation. The camps are open-air sewers where the human waste of infected travelers 5 miles ahead of you leaks directly into the groundwater. The biological assault is immediate and catastrophic. Within hours, the bacteria reach your small intestine. They do not wait to multiply. They secrete a specialized protein toxin that chemically hijacks your cellular ion pumps. Your biological plumbing is violently reversed. Instead of your intestines naturally absorbing water to hydrate your organs, your body is forced to aggressively pump every ounce of fluid from your central bloodstream directly into your bowels. The result is rice water stool, a relentless projectile evacuation of your life force. The speed of the collapse is terrifying. You can lose up to 5 gallons of essential fluid in a single day. Your blood, previously thin and mobile, becomes a thick, dark, syrupy sludge. Your heart, beating frantically at 150 beats per minute to move this sludge, begins to skip beats. You look in the mirror and see the Blue Death. Your eyes sink so deep into your skull they look like dark pits. Your skin wrinkles and turns a ghastly, bruised blue as your tissues are literally starved of oxygen. A healthy pioneer at sunrise is a blue, mummified corpse in a shallow grave by sunset, buried before the coyotes even realize you've stopped moving. Biological threat number 2, the bloody flux, dysentery. If you survived the trail and reached the California gold camps, the environment was even more lethal. Thousands of men are packed into canvas tents, defecating mere feet from the rivers where they prospect for gold and fetch their drinking water. This is the industrial grinder of human greed. You contract the bloody flux. Unlike cholera, which simply steals your water, Shigella bacteria are biological vandals. They invade and physically dissolve the mucosal lining of your large intestine. The pain is a localized, grinding agony that makes you want to reach inside and rip your own guts out. Every bowel movement is a terrifying mixture of liquid waste, bright arterial blood, and gray, stringy fragments of your own necrotic intestinal wall. You are being hollowed out from the inside. You are suffering from systemic sepsis and internal hemorrhaging in a makeshift tent, while your friends are outside fighting over a vein of quartz, completely indifferent to the fact that you are literally melting into the dirt. Biological threat number 3, consumption, tuberculosis. This is the disease of the legendary Doc Holliday, and it was a permanent, invisible resident of the frontier saloons. You are sitting in a crowded, smoke-filled room in Tombstone, 1880. Every breath you take is shared with 20 other men miners, outlaws, and gamblers, all inhaling the same stagnant, tobacco-stained air. Mycobacterium tuberculosis is a microscopic, waxy-walled siege engine. You breathe it in, and it enters the deep alveolar sacs of your lungs. Your immune system, recognizing the invader, rushes white blood cells to the area, but the bacteria's shell is too thick to digest. Instead, your body builds calcified, hard fortresses called granulomas around the infection. This is a biological stalemate. The bacteria survives inside these prisons for years, multiplying slowly and actively digesting your healthy lung tissue into a soft, white, cheese-like necrotic substance. The consumptive look, the pale, translucent skin, the feverish red cheeks, and the large, glistening eyes was once a romanticized fashion in high society London. On the frontier, it is the unmistakable smell of a rotting interior. The coughing fits become so violently intense, they can physically fracture your own weakened ribs. You hold a white silk handkerchief to your mouth, and it comes away soaked in frothy, bright red arterial blood. You are literally coughing up the liquefied remains of your own internal organs onto the sawdust floor of the saloon. There is no cure. There is only a slow, suffocating descent into the dark, suppressed by bottles of laudanum and whiskey, until your heart finally gives up on its impossible task of pumping blood through a dissolved lung. Biological threat number 4, gangrene and the hot saw. The West was a mechanical trap designed to break human bone. You fall from a spooked horse, or you are bitten by a rattlesnake while reaching for a water skin in the tall grass. A compound fracture in the middle of the desert is a death sentence. There are no hospitals, no sterile fields, and absolutely no anesthesia. Infection sets in within hours. The skin around the wound turns a mottled purple and a wet, foul-smelling black. This is gas gangrene. The bacteria are producing nitrogen and hydrogen gas under your skin, making the flesh crackle like dry parchment when touched. The only solution is the butcher's block. Your fellow travelers pin you to the dirt. They pour a bottle of cheap, raw whiskey down your throat, and the rest over a rusted wood saw they just pulled from the wagon. They heat the iron teeth in the campfire until they are glowing a dull, angry orange. The scream you let out when the hot, blunt saw bites into your thigh is a sound that will haunt the camp for decades. They saw through the muscle, the femoral artery, and the bone in a frantic race against the clock. To stop the geyser of blood, they don't use sutures. They take a bucket of boiling wood tar or a red-hot branding iron and press it directly against the raw, open meat of your stump. The smell of searing human flesh fills the air, mingling with the scent of the campfire. If the traumatic shock doesn't stop your heart instantly, the unsterilized environment ensures the rot will simply move higher up your hip by the next morning. You are a biological experiment in survival, conducted by men with the medical knowledge of a Stone Age hunter. Biological threat number 5. Saloon syphilis. The social life of the frontier was an unregulated biological exchange. Syphilis was rampant, unchecked, and eventually neurological. The frontier doctors, often charlatans with no training beyond a few months as a pharmacist's assistant, offered the only known remedy of the 19th century: mercury. They force you to ingest heavy doses of liquid mercury or rub toxic mercury salves directly into your open, weeping sores. Mercury is an aggressive neurotoxin. It begins to systematically poison your central nervous system before the disease can even reach your brain. Your teeth become loose and eventually slide out of your rotten gums. Your kidneys begin to fail, causing your body to swell with toxic fluid. You die in a state of horrific metallic poisoning, your mind fracturing, and your body systematically shutting down because the cure was more lethal than the infection itself. A night with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury, wasn't just a proverb. It was a literal biological sentence of execution. Biological threat number 6. The miner's scurvy. In the mountain camps of the Rockies or the High Sierras, winter is a 6-month biological prison. The diet is exclusively salted pork, coffee, and hardtack. No fruit, no vegetables. No vitamin C. You believe you are surviving on calories, but your molecular structure is failing. Vitamin C is the essential catalyst for collagen production. Without it, the glue that holds your human frame together begins to dissolve. The biological result is the systematic dissolution of your body's connective tissue. Old scars from injuries you sustained 10 years ago begin to spontaneously rip open. Your gums turn black, soft, and putrid. As you try to chew a piece of hardened dried beef, your teeth simply slide out of your jaw like pebbles from wet mud. You are literally falling apart at the seams. You experience internal hemorrhaging in your joints and organs because your capillaries are too weak to hold blood. You are turning to dust while you are still breathing, a victim of a silent nutritional void in a land of plenty. Biological threat number 7. Lockjaw, tetanus. The invention of the devil's rope. Barbed wire closed the open range, but it created a perfect accidental delivery system for Clostridium tetani. The rusted iron barbs, coated in desert soil and animal waste, are microscopic biological landmines waiting for a single mistake. You suffer a minor, insignificant scratch on your wrist while mending a fence line in the heat of July. You don't even wash it. The neurotoxin travels aggressively up your peripheral nerves, blocking the inhibitory neurotransmitters in your spinal cord. Within days, your jaw muscles seize in a permanent clench. You cannot speak. You cannot swallow. Then, the full-scale spasms begin. Every muscle in your body contracts with such violent, simultaneous force that you can physically snap your own spine or tear your own muscle fibers from the bone. You are arched backward in a permanent, agonizing bridge of rigid bone and screaming muscle, entirely conscious, until your diaphragm finally paralyzes and you suffocate in the middle of a beautiful, empty desert. You weren't shot by a bandit. You were executed by a tiny piece of rusted iron. Biological threat number 8. The speckled monster, smallpox. While the white pioneers brought their greed and their wagons, they also brought this speckled monster. Smallpox was the ultimate invisible algos of the frontier. It didn't care about your grit or your aim. It was a viral siege that could wipe out an entire encampment or an indigenous village in a matter of weeks. The virus enters through the respiratory tract, incubating in silence for 12 days. Then, the fever hits like a physical blow. Your skin erupts in a massive, carpet-like rash of hard, fluid-filled pustules. Every square inch of your body, including the inside of your mouth and throat, is covered in these agonizing blisters. You emit a sweet, sickening odor of rotting flesh. If you survive, Your face is left as a jagged map of deep, pitted scars, a permanent reminder that you are a survivor of a biological apocalypse that claimed millions. Biological threat number 9, the strangling angel, Diphtheria. On the frontier, the most heartbreaking killer targeted the most vulnerable, the children. They called Diphtheria the strangling angel. A child develops what looks like a simple sore throat, but the Corynebacterium bacteria produces a powerful toxin that creates a thick, leathery, gray membrane across the back of the throat. This pseudomembrane is firmly attached to the living tissue. As it grows, it physically obstructs the airway. The parents watch in absolute, helpless agony as their child struggles to draw a single breath, their face turning purple, their chest heaving for air that cannot pass. There were no intubation tubes. There were no antibiotics. There was only the sound of a child slowly suffocating to death in a lonely cabin. A biological execution carried out by a microscopic invader that transformed their own throat into a wall of stone. We look back at the shallow trail graves, the mercury-rotted jaws, and the boiling tar buckets, and we laugh at the primitive ignorance of the pioneers. We feel incredibly secure in our modern world of gym memberships, digital air purifiers, and 3D printed titanium implants. We view the high society doctors and the frontier barbers as primitive butchers operating in the dark. But the physiological reality of human arrogance has never stopped grinding. The frontier has merely shifted. We no longer send men with wooden shovels into the cemetery to steal bodies for study, and we no longer drill holes in the heads of patients with hand-cranked drills to release demons. But the fundamental human desire for a medical shortcut and the unquestioning obedience to authority in a white coat has never truly vanished. We overprescribe powerful, highly addictive synthetic peptides and opioids that have decimated entire modern cities, repeating the exact same pharmaceutical tragedy as the Victorian heroin model, just with a cleaner label and a billion-dollar marketing budget. We aggressively pump our highly insulated modern homes full of synthetic polymers, volatile organic compounds, and heavy flame retardants that continuously off-gas into our sealed environments. We actively engineer apex pathogens in pristine, high-security laboratories, trusting entirely that the glass will never, ever break. The heavy iron doors of the old asylums have been painted white, and the iron chains have been replaced by invisible chemical bonds of dependency. But the ultimate, terrifying goal of the institutional system remains exactly the same: total compliance. If you were standing on the edge of the Missouri River in 1850, fully aware of the Blue Death, the hot saw, and the strangling angel waiting for you on the trail, would you still have stepped into that wagon? Or would you have stayed behind, choosing the safety of a crowded city over the lethal promise of a golden future? Answer carefully. The history of the West wasn't written in lead and gunpowder. It was written in the blood, the bile, and the necrotic tissue of those who didn't make it to the sunset. Make your survival choice known in the comments below. The Archivista is logging your answers, and the canteen is almost empty. If you thought the diseases of the frontier were the ultimate test of human endurance, you clearly haven't seen what the elite medical establishment was doing to those who are already dead. Click the video on your screen right now to enter the horrifying, mud-caked world of the resurrection men, the grave robbers who didn't wait for the trail to kill you. They turned your ancestors into a medical commodity before they could even turn to dust. I'll see you in the archives.